Welcome, magical mages and spiritual sages, to everyone that's listening out there. A warm welcome to the Age of the Mage podcast, and this is episode 38. And we are continuing in this episode with the second transmission I received from the Angelic, what they refer to themselves as the Angelic Technologies Inc. or Angel Tech Group. And I explained how that name came into being in the prior podcast number 37. We are on this journey using some telepathic downloads and transmissions I'm receiving about angels and their paradigms and the demons and how they fit in, these kinds of things. We're kind of exploring these issues through these transmissions. I have been doing a lot of research as well in the 3D world with ancient texts and commentaries on biblical texts and the Books of Enoch and these types of things where many of our angelic systems have grown out of. And I've been doing that on the edges too. But I wanted to go personally into an intuitive state and see if I could receive some helpful information to sort all these things out that I'm learning about. And they have responded, and I feel pretty good about this information. And so we're going to continue here. And for any of you who have not yet heard any of the previous episodes that are specifically about this, I invite you to give those a listen. Episode 34 introduces the whole thing, why we're doing it and all that. And then at 35 and 36, I go over the first transmission I received about a year ago. And then in the previous episode 37, I begin to go over the latest transmission I received just here on March 9th, 2021. So it's very recent. And today we're going to continue with that second transmission. And so we're going to go right into it. And we left off with the ideas about how there are angels that do exist, I think as many of us picture them, at the highest realms, working right in the same plane as the highest source and the creator. And those would be perhaps the type of angels we all envision when we think of the archangels particularly, or very, very high angels in the order of angels. And those, they're evidently, we are also in touch with those who are almost like angels in training, I would say. I'm paraphrasing the transmission, of course, but they're angels down that work with each plane of existence, and they channel and receive their energies, their callings, their functions directly from these angels on the most high planes. And yet they're still evolving themselves. So they're not quite equivalent, I would say, to those angels we might think of when we think of the angels in their ultimate glory. And we're learning more about how these angels that interact with us, what is their real standing, and what are they like, and why do we hear stories about them that might seem, not so divine sometimes. Wars in heaven and a lot of politics, so to speak, and human emotions like jealousy and things. And so we're kind of diving into why is that the case. So we'll jump in now to the second part of this latest transmission and just start reading. It says, in the case of those angelic beings associated with your earthly era now unfolding, there is much misunderstanding. This is why we're willing to share our understanding with you. We wish to be of service and to help you and your species come to a better understanding of who and what you are accessing when you call upon angels for assistance, either through magical means or through spiritual traditions. Once again, these beings you can call by specific names. They do serve you in the role assigned to all angels. They do access angelic technologies, and they are resonant conduits to the highest powers and functions of the angels of the highest orders. But they are still on their own paths of progression and may still exhibit limitations. When you read of the angels in the ancient texts, it will be helpful for you to put their class of beings in perspective. They are those who elected to accept the role, calling, and function of angels for your species and plane of existence. They are still in a state of progression themselves. While they are far more advanced than most of your species, they are not yet in a state of perfection or absolute divinity. When they accept their role as one of your dimensional angels, they are taking a vow to uphold and maintain the rules and orders associated with their position. It is possible to break these vows and cause disruption in the creative orders set up by the respective creative alliance. When this happens, each creative alliance will choose how to handle such events according to their laws, ordinances, and creative structures. They are referring here, I'll just interject, to this creative alliance, which we've gone over in the previous podcast. And this is evidently a kind of an overseer group, and there's many of them, but we have the one associated with us who played quite a substantial role, if not the total role, in creating humans and overseeing our species and our interactions with them and our planet and things like that. So they're referring here to this creative alliance, and that the angels that come to give service, serve the plane that they are going to be working with, in our case would be Earth and Earth humans, they work under the governance of the same creator alliance. And that's kind of what that paragraph was talking to or addressing. All right, we'll continue. When you read of the fallen angels and their offspring, the Nephilim, you are hearing about a divergence from the guidelines set up for angels serving in your dimension and the resulting consequences. However, you are receiving the information through the eyes and ears of those who have been entrained into an authoritative system of obedience and hierarchy. Both your creative alliance as well as those who wrote the histories are reporting and interpreting the events through the lens of an authoritarian system. It is indeed true that some who were called as angels broke the rules associated with their calling. But it is possible to look at this through another type of lens, one of objectivity, rather than through a subjective and authoritative value assessment. We will attempt to demonstrate a more objective viewpoint. When some who were called to serve as angels broke the established boundaries that were laid down for them by your creative alliance, they violated natural laws as well as structural restrictions. In the case you are referring to, we see a serious violation regarding creation itself, as those that, quote, rebelled, chose to mix with the earth human in order to procreate. This was forbidden, as it was unknown what such a mixture of genetic code would bring into existence. You might see this as something akin to an enforced precaution based on genetic sciences. We see these types of violations occurring in your realm to this very day, as many still attempt to merge different species without the lawful support or understanding of divine creative science. So they're talking about when the angels that ended up being in the old text, the ones that are referred to as being cast out of heavens, and they get in deep trouble, right? Well, one thing they did is they looked at the earth human females and they lusted after them. And they did come down and they mingled and took these earth human females as wives and produced offspring with them. So that's the particular instance that we're referring to right now. While on the surface, this type of violation may not be aligned with some sort of sinful intention, it can bring consequences that destroy the natural intended evolution of the species. Therefore, it is the result of such a rebellion that creates destruction and chaos, rather than the rebellion itself. We can think of this violation as one without harmful intention, but still threatens the equilibrium necessary to maintain a designated course of evolution. Therefore, this type of rebellion can be seen as punishable according to the consequences that arise from violating natural laws. So I believe they're telling us here that those angels may not have even had sinful intentions in mind, but because they went against such a natural principle and the consequences weren't good, it can be punishable, kind of lawfully punishable. And they continue. In the text that you refer to, a negative consequence did occur as a result of the angels mating with humans. They produced a hybrid species, which you call the Nephilim. This species was not properly attuned to the natural laws that would sustain the earth human, nor did they carry the genetic material necessary to emulate their angelic parentage. This consequence produced the need for a countering action. In the case you refer to, your creative alliance chose to end the lives of all who were affected by the angels' actions. This was intended to clear and erase the energetic fields associated with that hybrid species so that it could no longer affect the future progression of the earth human race. So I just, reading through these, hearing these texts, I kind of took issue, I guess, a little bit with such severe punishments for these types of errors. And here they are explaining to me that it really did produce a negative consequence. And when you have overseers and stewards trying to do their best with bringing a species along in a certain way, that interruption did become quite severe. And so they had to remove that energy field so that their plans for the earth human could progress as on a better path, so to speak. That's how I interpret that. We'll go on. Some of their other violations, which you have mentioned, and this was earlier when I referred to them sharing knowledge and things with us, and why was that so awful? So this is what they're going to address here. Some of their other violations, which you have mentioned, were more in line with violations against legal structures than against nature itself. In this case, your creative alliance had a structure in place that was designed to guide your progression as a species according to their plans and desires. When angels broke away from those guidelines and shared forbidden knowledge with information with humans, it was deemed a violation of the laws set forth by the stewards of your race. This may cause some moral dilemma, as it can seem honorable that those angels were willing to share the secrets of your, quote, gods with you in order to help you progress faster. However, that behavior demonstrates a breach of trust that occurred between those in service to your stewards and the stewards themselves. This is also considered a punishable offense and resembles the energy associated with military orders in your dimension. Some orders might go against common morality, but they're expected to be obeyed for the sake of preserving the goals of the overall structure. So some of those types of violations, as I interpret this, were laws set up by the Creator Alliance, and we may see them as unfair laws in some ways. But nonetheless, those so to speak, contracted maybe to work with that alliance, were expected to keep those rules, and they did not. All right, continuing. Your histories tell you that the rebelling angels were cast out of the realms of heaven where the gods reside. This would parallel the idea that your creative alliance refused to let them resume their callings as angels under their guidance, and also refused them further access to their realm. This left the rebels, who are now referred to as demons, to be cast down to your realm, where it is said they dwell creating sin, chaos, and infinite evils on earth. This is not an entirely accurate account. Once again, it is viewed through the lenses of an authoritative punishment system, and it is also reported by those who wish to maintain their influence over you as a species, your creative alliance, and their representatives. It would not be in their best interest to excuse the violations of the angels, and allow you to consider such a rebellion yourselves, nor would they wish to have you in continued contact with the quote fallen ones. Well, see, this presents some ideas that are challenging for me anyway. So, yes, the stories basically say that these rebellious angels were cast out, and that is who we now know as demons. But in this transmission, we're getting this hint here that this is not all as accurate as we may believe. So we'll continue. Once again, we will attempt to relate this part of the narrative with a more objective outlook. While there is no doubt that some of those who rebelled have succumbed to a steady decline in their evolution, and perhaps have chosen to follow dark paths offered to them by others, many have not accepted such offers, and they will continue to evolve as angels. However, it is true that their evolution has been slowed and will take a different course than the one originally designed for them, as they would no longer resonate with the original path. So this is telling me that it's not all cut and dry, that some of these so-called fallen angels are still on angelic paths, and others have, unfortunately, gravitated more to the maybe the paths of darkness or whatever we want to call those. All right, continuing. Those that no longer chose to evolve as angels have aligned themselves fully with the energetic patterns of rebellion and resistance. This alignment leads to even deeper attunements to energies such as revenge, destruction, and decay. These are those beings who may be called, quote, demons by some. Unfortunately, this type of entity exists in every form, as it is a natural consequence of free will and natural species evolution. It is not limited to those you refer to as angels. Each species, each race, and each calling and function produces some who choose this path until a turning point occurs for them. At certain points, some of these entities may choose to realign with their original evolutionary path and begin a more positive cycle of existence. Those demons most reviled and named by your prophets and seers as the most evil are those who have chosen to walk the paths that lead directly away from any type of healthy evolution. However, it's important to note that many of these entities were coaxed and tempted onto their current paths by other negative beings who were already part of your multidimensional reality. In other words, their initial rebellion was only part of the reason they now find themselves in such dire and bleak circumstances. Some of their brethren chose to rebuild their fates, while those who continue to fall have allowed themselves to become fully resonant with entropic forces of destruction. Through this explanation, you can see that the stories that relate to the angels and demons known to you are not as clear-cut as it might appear through reading ancient texts. It is a complex paradigm that requires much deeper insight, and insight that is not available to most of the earth humans at this time. So this was interesting to me. It fleshed out the stories a little, and it took out that black and white feeling and filled in some of the gray areas, and makes me feel like this paradigm is evolving, is more advanced than ours. I could still access those that will have far more information than I do, and are also serving us and are dedicated to the service of humans. And I trust that group. But it also reveals some of the weaknesses in the plan, and that it's not all it's cracked up to be all the time, and is so presented as such. So that information can be challenging to accept, but it's all right with me. I think I'm moving into acceptance of that. So let's go on into, you'll have to see for yourselves what you think and feel out these ideas. As I said in the very beginning, anything like this that one person receives from otherworldly sources, you must weigh in with your own intuition and your own resonance, because I believe that this is entirely possible. Any kind of communication can be misinterpreted and even unintentionally. And that's so it's very important for each one of you to spend your own time with these elements and see if they become important to you or if they feel like the right interpretation to you, because you have access to your own guides that can then help you see the truest and best channel for you to take and ideas for you to believe in. So please remember, this is in no way intended to be a claim that all this is the absolute ultimate truth for everyone. It's simply sharing with you as I take this journey for myself. I'm just sharing as I go. So, all right, let's finish up this last transmission. We'll go back to it, and they say, now we would like to address the issues pertaining to your trust in such beings that you know as angels, and how you might move forward with regards to calling upon them for assistance, support, healing, or inspiration. As you might perceive from our explanations thus far, some adjustment in your thinking might need to take place in order to work successfully with these beings. Perhaps they're not exactly as you perceived them to be, and if so, it will be necessary to realign your expectations with the truth about their existence, purpose, and abilities. We can assure you that angels of the highest order do exist, both as original archetypes and as functioning entities who carry out their missions and resonate to their assigned roles as extensions of the one creative source. All angel technologies, as we might call them, emanate from these beings and from the natural forces that created, define, and sustain them. They are able to extend their knowledge, spirit, technologies, and power throughout all angelic systems that function and exist throughout all dimensions. Therefore, it is generally safe to approach one of your dimension's angels through the naming, calling, or requesting of assistance. In most cases, you will reach the energy signature of the angel governing your domain as a qualified representative of the angel of the highest kingdoms. The names of the angels and demons known to you have been assigned to them and given to you through revelation and inspiration. Turning the page here. While some names are not entirely accurate, they are designed to encompass the sound technologies necessary to open a portal to angelic energy systems. This is why it is not advised to say their names without consideration. Each name holds the original sound bearer technology associated with the tasks of that angel. The sound bearer label is a reference to an angelic technology that we spoke of in our prior communication with you. So this gives me a lot of hope that I can proceed with study and intuition. I can proceed to call upon the angels in confidence that I'm reaching a very high and pure channel to goodness and benevolence. And that was my overall concern. And that last couple paragraphs helps me feel better about that. So I will just close here with the last 3 paragraphs of this transmission. We return to reading. In the case of those angels who have fallen from their original path, it is not generally recommended to use their names or call on them for assistance. The sounds and tones of their names, originally designed for positive growth and evolution, are now contaminated by the energies they're currently resonating to. In some cases, one who is well versed in the studies of demonology may be able to successfully work with such beings who have been wrongly accused of falling from their path. Those beings would still be considered demons by those who are not informed, but they may actually be striving to regain their original status and would be willing to assist humans as a result of their positive intentions. However, this is a level of discernment and knowledge that is very rare and is not a necessary tool for most magical or spiritual practitioners. So this was a little paragraph about demonology and the names of the demons, because of course they are angels too in their original form. They've just chosen a different path at this time. So they have included this paragraph to as a warning, I think, that may not want to go around calling upon those names, because the sounds now have been altered to, they've picked up the energy of where the angel is at the current time, and it may be lower, darker energies that you don't want to bring into your life. However, for those who are here to work specifically with that paradigm, they are saying that it's rare, but there are those who exist. And for them, they will gain the knowledge and the intuition they need to call upon those in that particular level, in that dimension, to help them. And hopefully they'll be guided to those who are trying to evolve once again and serve humans. All right, let's go on. If you should choose to call out or utter the names of angels as you continue to follow your own magical path, we advise that you use the names of those who have been called on for many generations by masters of magic and spirit. Those who have gone before you have compiled information about these beings and can offer reliable guidelines for those who choose to follow in their footsteps. Use your own discernment, of course, but it is generally safe to rely on the historical accounts pertaining to what each angel's energy represents and for what reasons that angel may be called on to assist. Those that have maintained their angelic positions under the guidance of your creative alliance are serving in positions of allegiance to you as a species. They are your conduits to the angels on high and all the technology that goes with that calling and function. They can provide you with access to information and tools that will assist you with your personal and collective evolution should you choose to call upon them in that capacity. They must regard the laws of free will set forth by the creative source, and so it is necessary that you ask for their intervention or assistance before they can offer such services. And that is the concluding paragraph of the second transmission that I received. So I do feel, after reading the entire thing, personally I feel more confident in continuing my journey. And with regards to my feelings about angels, I think they've been corrected and maybe adjusted, but I'm comfortable. I'm gaining some comfort with how I perceive them. And this is going to allow me, I think, to go ahead and work with them, because I have had very strong draws to do so. So I'm going to be closing this session for now. Thank you for following along on this journey. And I will pass along any new messages I get regarding angels, of course. And we'll also go into many more subjects and topics about how we're using our magic and our spiritual connections and our souls and our soul contracts and star families and all the rest at this very important time on Earth. Thank you so much for joining me. And I do wish for each and every one of you that magic occurs for you every single day, that your spirits connect with your source every day, and that it brightens your day in some way. And thank you so much once again for being with me. And I shall return shortly, and I'll say goodbye for now.